anybody at Bassett who could provide that cable? So we can start the meeting and somebody could.
It's gonna be a good long while
Yeah.
before we get
Okay.
to you anyway.
Good.
So you got plenty of time to find it.
Thank you. Okay, Marcia, are you in good shape? Great. So it's 5:04. I apologize for the delay. We're going to call the meeting of the Historic Preservation and Architectural Review Board of the Village of Cooperstown to order. And we're going to open with a public hearing. We're going to open a public hearing for 15 Church Street, an application to demolish the rear porch. Well, thank you. I know you're here. What we're going to do is open the public hearing. Hang tight. What I usually do is leave the public hearing open in case somebody does come in to speak regarding it. So Chris, have there been any communications about it to your office?
No.
Okay. And is anybody here to speak regarding the demolition of the rear porch at 15 Church Street? Okay, great. Then we are going to leave the public hearing open. And we're going to move on to regular agenda item number 1 for Old School Court. Would you like to come up and have a seat, please? Hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Good. I'm sorry. Computer to boot up, so go ahead and start telling us where you're at this month.
Okay, last month I came in with quite a few different items for the renovation of my house on 4 Old School Court. The one thing that the board had concerns with was the siding that I had selected. That was a cedar shaped style siding. So, and the concern was that that was a big change from what the existing siding looks like. So I went back to the drawing board and found a different siding that isn't the cedar shaped style. It's a smart side, smooth style, which is much more similar to what is on the house now. This is a treated engineered wood. It is got different layers. It's got a zinc borate, which is deals with the damage resistance to it. It has resins in it, which adds strength against the freezing and the thawing that, of course, we have a lot of here. It adds waxes for moisture resistance, and it has an overlay to resist moisture coming in from the outside. So this is the siding that I am now proposing.
Would you like to pass it around? And does this come pre-painted or is it paintable?
Well, either, and I prefer the pre-painted.
And is that the color you're proposing? Just out of curiosity, we don't weigh in on color, actually.
No, that would actually be my second choice. My first choice is a very pale moss green. And,
but it is paintable, so that's fine. So
paintable.
A future owner could change colors.
Yes, yes.
Anybody have any questions while the sample is going around?
So does this siding sample look like that, or does it look like shingles? Does it look like novelty siding?
It looks like that. It's a
board.
board.
So it is-
And you put on top of a board
So
on
it
top.
does-
Looks like a clapboard.
Right.
And it's like the picture overlapped a little bit, like a clapboard would be
Yes, and I have
installed.
some other pictures in another brochure if you want to see it, but yeah, that's exactly what it is.
So this is for smooth finish lapped siding, this particular sample? Is that what you are installing, or are you installing a clapboard? Which is, they layer on top of each other?
They layer on top of each other.
Okay.
So, because what you're seeing is a smooth, like a shiplap type siding, where
You're
They don't-
talking when they good stack
Right,
like this.
right.
No, I'm talking
You're
when they
layering,
stack.
like in the picture on the front cover, which shows a siding, as a clapboard siding as opposed to a shiplap.
Do you know how the spacing of the boards are relative to the old existing?
Meaning how, I'm not sure what you're asking.
The distance between the boards?
How wide
They're
are
wide,
the
yeah.
other boards?
Yeah.
The boards that are on there are 7 inches, and I'm thinking those are 7 point something, it says it on the left.
And the ones that are on there are vinyl, correct?
They are, and they have lost their finish, and they're getting very
7.84.
chalky.
Yeah.
7.84 reveal?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. You're hired.
Be careful what you wish for.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions? We really appreciate you coming in with an alternative to your plan last month. Thank you. I think this is much more appropriate to your home, and I think it's a great option, excuse me. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I just need one more review.
Sure.
I need one more practice.
Okay,
I'll be happy.
Dave will lead by
Yes,
example.
yes,
Good.
yeah, let me we move that each party provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 4 Old School Court, specifically to apply the new siding under criteria 2A, 2B, 3A, C, and I would say also 3E.
I'll second that motion.
Great, Bernie, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, Liz votes yes?
Pat, yeah.
Bernie, yes.
David, yes.
Erin, yes.
And we usually ask alternates to vote when we are short of staff, a shorter person. So we'll invite you to vote and just hang in there until then. Okay, so we have an approval. Thank you very much. And good luck with the project.
Thank you.
I'll have you soon.
Okay, we're gonna leave the public hearing open a little bit longer. We're gonna address 38 Nelson Avenue next. Lisa, would you like to come up and sit down and tell us about your project?
I just am asking that we be allowed to replace our porch flooring with the old rotted wood to, it's either composite or composite. I don't know how you say it.
Composite.
Flooring,
Okay,
and I believe you guys all got copies of the samples. We're down to 2 basically different colors that we haven't decided yet.
does anybody, go ahead,
I can
Chris.
say you're down to 2 different colors, but you propose 2 different products, and
Yes.
Duratec, and you pick between those 2.
Right, no, because one is a light brown, one is a dark brown, so we
I
have
see.
to decide.
Oh, which one based on the
Yes.
color?
Yes,
So that's where the choice of the 2 different products is coming in, once you
Yes.
choose the color. Okay, did anybody have other questions for Lisa about the proposal, other than the potential color or material choice? In addition, you can ask about the color or material choice. Nothing? Got nothing?
You said you're replacing, you showed a picture of these, it's both porches.
Both porches.
right,
Just
right,
checking that.
just the flooring, yeah.
Pat? Any questions?
Another one.
Bernie?
What's the meaning of life?
We'll work on that.
I have one question. So the second option, Duratec, says that it's paintable right there on the thing. Do not see information that the moisture shield product is paintable.
With decking, we haven't made that a requirement,
Okay, got it.
especially with porch decking. But thank you for asking that. We don't require that. You know, we always like to see engineered products that are paintable in an ideal world, but with porch decking, we have not held people to that level of.
think it's your call to prayer.
It's time for a musical interlude.
The whole point was not to have.
Well, I turned it off,
Got
I
it.
turned it off, I
Yes,
turned it off.
no, and we don't require that because we know how hard it is for people to maintain that decking. But
You reminded me, thank you.
otherwise, they're pretty comparable products. And we have approved comparable products for other situations. Bernie, you didn't have any questions? Just in case, Jay, you do have any questions, or you caught us on anything? No? Okay, okay. All right, does anybody want to make a motion then?
That I move that H Park provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 38 Nelson Avenue under criteria 2B, 3A, and 3B.
And my only question is, we were probably not gonna get to it this fall, so.
This
how
is
long-
good for 2 years, and if you don't get to it, you can come in for a renewal after 2 years. Okay, so we have renewed applications regularly, so, yeah, yeah, but good luck with the project. So I'm not sure if this is a little different, I didn't mean to get distracted.
No, mine is, yeah, mine is not, does not have
So
the
mine
same version as yours does.
says, we're gonna work on that. This might be the older one.
But I feel like this is the
Grab.
old one, because it doesn't say certificate of appropriateness anywhere on this piece of paper.
Oh, yeah. He's afraid
You're holding out on us.
I'm just looking for reasons not to participate.
Right,
Do you
no,
need
no,
any
no,
seconding and so forth?
oh, sure,
Okay,
we got the,
I got that down. I'll
would you
second
like to do that?
I would like to do that.
Elizabeth,
Happy to
yes.
help.
Anybody else?
David, yes.
Aaron, yes.
Pat, would you like to vote?
What was the question?
We didn't vote. Bernie caught us.
On the deck.
That's it, yes.
Okay, sorry.
Bernie says yes.
Bernie said yes, okay. And I'm still trying to make my computer work, which I'm gonna give up on at this point. Chris, do you have hard copies? Okay, thank you. If, I'll peek. Okay, why don't we go back to the public hearing? If nobody's come in regarding the public hearing at 15 Church Street. Will, would you like to come up, please? Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Okay. So we have reviewed many aspects of this project. This application for partial demolition is to demolish the rear porch at 15 Church Street, related to the addition, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions regarding Will's application to demolish the rear porch at 15 Church Street? Thanks, Chris. And we normally ask to discuss what is being proposed to replace it, but I think we've reviewed that, correct? And we're good with that.
There's been so many pages involved with this, so there needs to be a refresher. I can go over it, or I brought extra images just in case the applications got mixed up, so.
Well, we'll
Here's the,
address the demolition
right,
first.
the rear
Mhm.
porch.
Does anybody else need to see images in the files Chris sent us? And Jay may want to peek over somebody's shoulder at these.
Okay.
And the porch is being replaced with the addition, the expanded addition on the rear of the structure.
Yes.
To modify it. To give us the setbacks.
But the doors are only closet, the
Doors.
doors.
Yeah. It's interesting.
And then
No, I mean, not too far. So
afterwards, then
And there's the page, and then
just the different size.
this isn't right, that's not
Actually, you can see, they're just.
existing condition. This is not approved, this is from a different proposal, but yeah, not rebuilding the porch, he's putting in addition, yeah.
Okay, so we're good? Does anybody have any questions? Okay. So, as pointed out, I passed out an older version of the cheat sheet, which Marcia warned me it may have been.
Thanks, Marcia.
You all marked it up or no? Is it included? Ooh,
that's a little.
I could just photocopy it. I bet there's one of those here in this village office, a photocopier.
It's gonna cost you.
There
So
is.
do we need
You
a
have to know
motion for
somebody.
demolition?
Yes, we need a motion to approve the application for demolition at 15 Church Street.
So moved.
So,
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. I'm sorry. It's been one of those days. Okay, any discussion? Second. Bernie seconded, Pat seconded. Liz votes yes.
Erin, yes.
David, yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Bernie. Okay, you're set for the demolition of the rear porch, and we'll see you as the next phase of your project evolves and you need more review. Okay, thank you, Will.
Painless.
Okay, now we're gonna address 11 Cooper Lane. John, would you like to come up and tell us about what you're trying to do?
Well, I'm trying to make this as easy as possible. So,
For you or us?
I don't think anything's easy. I need a maintenance, sort of less maintenance and a handicap accessible place. So my garage, which was before the board, not that long ago, maybe 10 years. And so basically what I'm doing is using existing material. I have existing siding from when I did the place, and I have these the same windows, so I'll just use the same windows. So basically what I'm doing is adding a door, which I sent a copy of. It's just as an exterior door, turn it into basically a cottage. So it's existing windows that are already been approved on the building, and the existing siding that's been approved on the building, because I have existing material, so I'll just add 2 windows where a garage door is, and that should do it. Then I don't have to struggle up the stairs or worry about painting anymore.
Do you have specs on the materials you plan to use for the window and door,
It's
John?
an Anderson window, and it's a fiberglass exterior door. I'll send a picture.
Okay.
Again, it's the same windows that are in here, it's a double hung window.
Okay. And it's a ganged window, 2 windows?
2 windows together,
This one,
just the light.
to the side, stay the same.
Nothing else changes, just the facade. Just figured someone don't want to get too involved, because of course, then, since it's on a dead-end lane, I don't think it's gonna be intrusive to anyone.
And so when was your garage constructed?
About 10 years ago.
We reviewed it.
Okay.
It was overviewed here, same, like I said, I started trying to use existing materials, so I don't have to changes, windows, siding, it's all in there, so I'm not changing anything. None of it's all exists here. And it's down at the same level.
And you're removing both garage doors?
Yes. One will become a door, and one will become 2 windows.
And-
Basically, the side.
Kicking the side door?
Side will stay, yeah.
And you said you have siding to match to fill it, and I'm
Same siding.
assuming you'll fill it as if nothing were there before, everything
Yes.
flushed
Yes.
to existing, et cetera.
Hopefully look like a nice cottage when it's landscaped and I don't have to climb stairs, I don't have to paint it.
And the- Bernie, do you have any questions?
No.
Kat, do you have any questions?
I'm not understanding this window. Am I looking at the right one?
Yes, that's the right one. Where the garage, that door you see
Right?
will go on
Over
the
here.
facade where the garage door.
Right here, right?
Yes, exactly, yes.
Okay. And this is a single window?
Double ganged window,
Okay. Single but double hung?
a double hung ganged, two windows.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So your measurements are 60, so they're gonna be 30 inches wide, Kat, right, roughly, or just shy of that?
So it's a square window?
It's a regular double hung window, two of them next to each other,
But it's a square.
Yeah, but if there's
30
two of
by
them, they'll be
30 by 30.
Each one
Right.
is 30 by 30.
Thank you. You're testing my abilities today,
advanced
Pat.
math.
Now, John, the other windows in the photographs,
They're the same.
they're divided lights.
Yeah.
Will these windows have divided lights as well?
I assume that they use the same windows to save the
Okay.
application.
Are those grids between the glass, just out of curiosity?
They're in the glass, they're made in, they're not fake,
Okay, they're not fake,
no.
they're not in between the panes. Okay, great.
Okay. Have the 4 lights, so I got you.
Ken, although we don't have the meaning of life resolved yet,
We
do you
don't
have any
what?
other questions for John?
No. I mean, design question.
Dave?
So we have the parking plan. that-
Yeah, I went through that already, we did that,
So the space for 4 cars.
whatever you needed, I came up with that at the last one.
Okay, all right.
And that's a zoning question,
Yeah.
right?
And that last week's
And that
meeting,
was
we
reviewed.
went through it
Went through
extensively.
that. We got that.
Yep. Okay. Jay, did you have any questions?
No, man.
Okay, Erin, do you have any questions?
My only question is, because this was already reviewed, do we, like normal, like all the other applicants have had specific information about windows? And this application doesn't state the manufacturer of the window or really very much specific information about the window.
Or
And
the
I'm-
door?
Or the door, and I'm just wondering if we should request that because, for consistency, or if that doesn't apply because this was
I think it's a
previously
good
approved.
idea to not hold up the review, but if John is telling us that the application, the windows are to match,
Yeah.
and if you can get us a spec sheet on the door and the
I sent
windows,
a copy of it.
okay, the spec sheet?
Well, I give you the spec, I give you the measurements, just
So
exterior fiberglass door.
we do ask applicants to provide us with spec sheets on the doors and the windows, so they are on file. So the manufacturer or vendor of the door and the window could provide, or if you have that
I can leave it with you.
information,
I took it out.
Chris can make a copy. That's great.
Alright,
Do you
I'll
want,
let
do
Chris-
you want to see the book he has, Erin?
Sure.
Just that the door came out of here.
Super. Thank you.
I'll give it to Chris and he can make a picture of the specs to all in there.
John, are you doing an overhang, like the overhang on the other door, or right now you're?
No,
Okay.
there's a piece already overhanging, like there's a piece, we call ledge, just.
A drip ledge.
I'm not changing anything with the exterior, I'm doing is adding 2 windows and a door.
Okay.
No, there's a slide over there.
Does anybody else want to take a look at the specs for the door? Okay. Chris, if you don't mind making a copy of John's specs for the door, and John, if you don't have window specs there too, if you could get Chris that information, that would be good. Okay. Need a motion?
I would like to. That we move that HPAR provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 11 Cooper Lane, the conversion of the garage to the dwelling unit under criteria 2B, 3A, B, D, and 5.
Okay, great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pat. Any discussion? Yeah, Liz votes yes.
Bernie, yes.
Thank you.
David, yes.
Aaron, yes.
Great. Okay,
Yeah,
John.
just to refresh, this is good for 2 years.
Yes.
Needs to-
And if you need an extension, come and see us. Thanks, John. Okay, 50 Walnut Street. Not here? Okay. We'll move on to 83 Pioneer Street.
No, 83 Pioneer?
Okay, we'll move on to 1 Beaver Street. Hi. Come on up. Okay. Great. How are you?
I'm very well, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm shaking out with E4H on behalf of Bassett.
Okay. I'm sorry, please tell me your name again?
Robert Shaker.
Robert, nice to meet you.
The intent of our project here is to take an existing building and to renovate it into a daycare center for the Bassett healthcare network. The board you see here in front of you, you have the images of the house as it currently exists and walking around the house. And on the right, a couple other houses around Cooperstown for context. And our goal here is obviously to mimic the existing character of the house as closely as possible. I can show you the next board. These are actually materials. These are the elevations of the house as we walk around. The addition question is mostly this one up the front here, and this is the back elevation where we'll be extending out to the back. The exterior cladding will be consisting of a hardy board material, hardy shingle, hardy plank that will mimic the existing shake siding and shiplap siding that currently exists. We can show you a more rendered image of what the street front view is intended to appear like. So here you can see what will be seen from Beaver Street as you enter the property. Here's our addition here, divided light windows, paintable, all materials paintable, and the plan is to do a paint refresh on the existing siding and to provide shingles that will match the character of the original, but we will replace them all in kind so that there's a consistent appearance to the street frontage, and in fact, every window throughout. I'll hold up some of these are just examples of the products we'll be using. Just swaths of it. Here we have this primary field of shake siding shingles. The vertical shiplap siding can be oriented horizontally or vertically. In our case, it would be vertical to match the house. And you can see there's a slight shadow line. The color will be white, though you can see that it will not be just a perfectly smooth surface, but you'll have that small V groove. We have French doors off the front, also with a divided light mimicking the windows, which you can see here below, both Marvin products. The trim board will also be a Hardy product. You can see it very closely mimics the grain of wood to try to give it a more authentic feel, even closer up to the building. And here you can see the types of shutters we have. The house as it exists has two different types. It has a louvered up top and this kind of recessed panel on the bottom. And our intent is to match that to keep with the historic character. And finally, over on the right, tab asphalt shingle, which is what we have on the house now. Site work wise, we will have like a wrought iron fence, which will match what is currently along the front of the property, which runs right behind the hedgerow. But anywhere where we have fencing, we'll be matching that character as well. Rendered image. And just lastly, I'd like to just wrap up with a rough overview of the site. Our existing site is shown up in the upper left-hand corner. The addition off the front will displace 3 parking spaces, which will be replaced with 5 new spaces over here, which will be right along this area. Traffic in this loop is one way, so that will be amicable to the sawtooth arrangement there. And this front path here will feature a gated system here to enclose that playground area, but it will also open to allow for both snowplow removal, fire truck access if ever necessary, and that is the intent of the site work.
Great, thank you, Robert. Okay, wonderful.
Could you go back to the existing conditions board?
Yep.
Thanks.
Here we have a 3/4 view of what the front of the house currently looks like.
Thanks.
Would anybody find it helpful if I held up the proposed as well as the other one together to contrast them?
Kendra will do it, so we can, thank you for offering that, Bernie.
That's
So really, the lower left-hand corner is the closest to the front elevation that, in terms of comparisons.
yes.
Your reproduction shutters are,
They'll be made of a composite wood material, but they are paintable.
Has anybody kind of done an analysis of the existing shutters, since you're proposing 2 different styles, to see what might have been historically appropriate? I didn't look that close at the shutters when I looked at Harrison House.
The shutters that are on there, I think I mentioned, the ones that are
The panel?
on the bottom, yeah, those are the paneled ones. The upper ones are as they exist, are louvered. They're getting pretty on in age and they're kind of a rough shape. So we'd like to replace that with something that might withstand test of time a little more, but again, is appropriate to the.
And I guess my question is, do you think early on and
Like
we could
in
do-
1934,
Yeah.
were there 2 different types of shutters, or at some point, and yes, there were?
Yeah, the
Okay.
original document records we have, which I can provide if you would like, are showing 2 different styles, one on the bottom, one on top.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, thank you for doing that. We'll go through and see if anybody has any questions, but just to kind of frame things for the board right now. There are a few things we need to do tonight, and we do not need to issue a certificate of appropriateness this evening, because the village is taking a number of steps in this process. So we really have to think about questions we have and concerns we have in terms of moving this forward and determining what kind of information we would like from Robert and his firm before the next meeting. So I don't want anybody to feel that this is a decision to be made tonight. We will think about questions either now or communicate them to Chris and I after the meeting if there are additional questions. But does anybody have any specific questions for Robert right now?
Would it be possible to see the nature of the composite in the shutters?
Work on getting some physical
Because it's
samples.
chunk, but,
Yeah,
in other words, composite is half plastic, half wood fiber, but how much? And so I thought I would prefer to shy away from plastic shutters.
yeah, it is a material that is, as it says, it's a composite of things, as you say, but wood can be done, it's just the concern is that, it's a much more high maintenance and it may not get the attention it deserves, but we can certainly look at getting a physical sample of the composite material here.
Just a piece of chunk of the material, did you see a whole shutter or anything like that? It's just,
Okay. You can work on procuring that for sure, definitely.
thank you so much.
It's my understanding that since we're not formally reviewing this project tonight, because it was sent to us for recommendation, we have to look at the criteria for recommendation that we're supposed to be considering, which are, in 300-70C, there are 4 questions and.
So would you like to read those questions, Chris? Because I
Right.
printed it, but it's
Sure,
not
sure.
in my file.
And then we also have to make a motion, formal motion to declare the trustees as the lead agency. But for now, these 4 steps outlined in 300-70C, we should address, 1, if the process for additional required reviews. And so I guess we have recommendations on that. The recommendations are that after, I'm not sure.
I would say that, I would interpret that to mean that, once other boards have approved the proposal, that we receive a bit more complete application in terms of material types.
And I suspect that the process for additional reviews is, we have to note that it's going to be the Board of Trustees are the lead agency.
Mhm.
So that's a recommendation.
Mhm.
Take a jump to number 2, if there's more. That seems pretty straightforward. 2 says, a determination of whether the application is complete for those reviews.
No, once we get materials like the materials Pat is requesting, or if there are additional materials to review, that would happen after that, right? Yeah.
Yes. 3 says the need for a consultant or consultants to evaluate the proposed use. And it's my understanding that we're not calling for consultants in this case.
And if there are additional needs for other consultants that the board feels strongly about, we can
Or I
address
suppose
that with the
the
trustees.
trustees as the lead agency we defer to them. And number 4, you might think we're finished, but unfortunately, number 4 refers us to 16 other questions, so put on your seatbelts. Number 4 says, the board's evaluation of the proposed use in consideration of the criteria for special use permits in this chapter, which we go to. And you're probably familiar with these, I would think. This is 300-16C, the procedure for special permits. I don't know, maybe if Liz has got those there, she's probably better and able to walk through these than I am, if you guys want to
Okay,
lead it.
so Special use criteria include need, the proposed use with the exception of home occupations, accessory dwellings, or short-term rentals must meet a demonstrated community need as identified in an adopted municipal plan or land use policy. So I think it's safe to say that the need for additional daycare facilities and childcare facilities has been proven. Adjacent land uses. The proposed use must not be detrimental to its site or to adjacent parcels. The proposed use must be of such location, size, and character that it will be in harmony with its surroundings and with the appropriate and orderly development of an area in which it is proposed to be situated. I think given the Bassett campus, the adjacent use criteria has been met, and I do have to applaud Bassett and the architects they're working with in developing and maintaining Harrison House, because I know that we have seen applications for demolition related to Harrison House, not in this iteration of the board. So I don't know if you remember that, Pat, or if you were on the board, but there was a desire to demolish Harrison House at one point. So the fact that there has been a sincere attempt to adaptively reuse it is to be applauded.
Did the neighbors get a input at some point if they wanted? Not that I think they would.
If related to the development? Chris, I'm not sure about that in terms of the zoning.
Well, yes, there will be a special use permit issued for this, which will require a hearing, but all these hearings will be going through the Board of Trustees.
At the same, yes, yeah.
I don't know that there are non-Bassett neighbors within the catchment area and notice required.
Probably the across the street
Okay,
neighbors,
got it.
yes, yes. Location and size of use, the nature, volume, and times of operation of the use involved, the size and layout of the site in relation to the use, and the location of the site with respect to existing and future streets providing access must be in harmony with the orderly development of the area in which it is proposed to be situated. Does anybody have any concern that it does not meet this criteria?
Is that for us, the historic aspect of it? Or?
I think the historic aspect of it is certainly part of it in terms of the massing and scale of the development and the impact related to the buildings around it. So I think in terms of the massing and scale, given, I personally do not see a problem with the size of the structure as proposed in terms of any changes.
I guess I was thinking in terms of the when it's drop-off time for kids, if that's going to be happening at a certain time, and that.
And that isn't an HPARB decision,
okay,
so that's where, neighbors or other kind of citizens would weigh in a public hearing.
Okay.
We are looking at exterior appearance, materials, massing, scale, and so it will be interesting to see how that weighs in the kind of community need and how people perceive that at a meeting, certainly.
I do have a question kind of related to that. So many of these special permit items, 1 through 16, are kind of with, outside of our remit. Is there a reason, like, could somebody explain why this is part of the procedure?
I think that if we were to formally review the project, it would start a clock ticking where actions would have to be taken.
Okay.
So we're really just making recommendations, and these are the things we look at to recommend. We don't have to.
And so is this body making this recommendation because this is the first body that this project has come to?
Each village board is being asked to review the same criteria.
Got it.
And from their lens,
Okay.
so some may not seem to apply,
Okay.
but it's important that we each
At least consider-
address the
consider and say
criteria.
that
And
doesn't
I mean, for example, Bernie's question was important because there are a lot of different ways to think about location and size of use. And for us, we're really looking at the size of use in terms of, I interpret that as the massing and scale in terms of this board's responsibilities. Okay? Location, nature, and size of buildings and structures, and again, similar to the previous, these weren't designed with one or another board in mind. The location, height, footprint, and volume of buildings, and the location, nature, and height of walls, fences, and landscape features must be such that they will not hinder or discourage the development and use of adjacent parcels and buildings. And again, I think this building is secondary to many of the buildings around it in terms of the size and impact. But if anybody has anything else to weigh in on. If anybody else has anything to add or contribute to that. Okay. Density of development, the density of the surrounding area such as lot size, distances between structures, amount of open space, street width, and parking regulations must maintain the character of the zoning district in which it is proposed to be situated. Given the existing parking lot and very few kind of changes in terms of this particular density of development question. Anybody have anything to add to that?
I would just say that the, expansion of the building is in the rear rather than in the front, and that's great.
There is a bit of expansion of the parking in the front, right? In the top right, those are new
There's a
spaces.
small addition to the front. It will come out about 10.5 feet total. See, it will stop short of where the drive currently exists. So in that existing site, it's right above.
Okay. Got it.
And
Overall, less than 8,000, there's less than 3,000 square foot total footprint expansion to the total of the footprint of the building.
And also the planning board is empowered to focus on that topic too.
vehicular access and circulation, provisions for vehicular traffic access and circulation, including intersections, road widths, alignment, grade, pavement surfaces, stormwater infrastructure, visibility, and traffic controls must promote safety considering the proposed use. Access ways must be adequate for safety, but not excessive. I think Robert addressed the access for safety. Does anybody have any questions regarding other aspects of this particular item? Pedestrian circulation, provisions for pedestrian traffic access and circulation, walkways, structures, control of intersections with vehicular traffic, and overall pedestrian convenience must promote safety and accessibility. And I think that was addressed. Any other questions? Parking, location arrangement, appearance, and sufficiency of off-street parking spaces and loading berths must be adequate for the proposed use and in harmony with adjacent parcels. In general, landscaping of the site must be compatible with plant species generally found in the area and serve to mitigate the visual impact of the parking area.
So I would comment on that, if there was something that was seen to interfere with the way that the area is in terms of the aesthetics of the area, that some sort of a hedge would be able to mitigate any impact that could potentially come up, and I don't imagine that would necessarily be a problem in terms of.
There is a hedge currently in place. There's a fairly dense one along Beaver Street there, which we intend to preserve.
Okay, so probably won't be even seeing. It would be hard, especially with the turn there, unless you're just driving off the road.
Once you pass the hedge, you will see our
Just below the hedge, in the photo on the left, is that tree and other bushes we see? Are those to remain, or? Yes.
Yes, we want to preserve that.
Well, it's nearly impossible to see this building from the street as is, unless you're standing in the driveway.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Good question. Okay, layout, the location, arrangement, size, design, and general site compatibility of buildings, lighting, and signage must be in general harmony with the character and appearance of the surrounding neighborhood. Any questions or concerns related to this?
Doesn't sound like there's gonna be much in the way of additional signage in the front of
If there's something to just, address signage, something above the door of the building, just Harrison House daycare, but nothing significant.
Informational.
No billboard size, anything.
And any signage will be reviewed by one of the other village boards, so that will be addressed by the planning board. Okay, drainage facilities and erosion control, stormwater management plans and drainage facilities must be in conformance with applicable regulations and must protect natural resources and adjacent parcels. I'm assuming this has been addressed in your plans, although it has not been articulated in our presentation.
We have retained the services of civil engineers to maintain the proper drainage around the new construction and work around the new grades of our additions.
Great, thank you. Any other questions related to this? Okay. Landscape, the nature and extent of landscaping on the site must meet or exceed all legal requirements for screening and must not hinder or discourage the development and use of adjacent parcels and buildings. Existing trees and shrubbery must be retained to the extent possible. Sounds like that has been addressed. Any questions? Okay. Water and sewer, adequacy of water supply and sewage disposal facilities and their compliance with New York State and Otsego County Departments of Health requirements are required. I'm assuming that has also been addressed. Emergency access, adequate provision for fire, police, and other types of emergency vehicles must be made. You mentioned the access for fire and emergency vehicles. And I'm assuming that comparable access around the rear of the building has been accounted for. Okay, any other questions? Lighting, the new building and structures must be designed, constructed, and maintained, and new and existing vegetation must be managed so as to not unreasonably impede solar radiation on other properties in order to preserve the economic value of solar radiation on buildings, structures, and parcels. Investments in solar energy systems and options for future use of solar energy. Artificial outdoor lighting must be kept to a minimum intensity needed for the proposed use. Fully shielded to minimize glare and pavement light trespass and sky glow, and confined within the boundaries of the property. Will a lighting plan be submitted at some point when this project moves further? Okay, we will address that as it is. Okay, noise, odor, and other irritants, adequate nuisance prevention measures have been or will be taken to prevent control offensive odors, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration that would hinder or discourage the development or use of adjacent parcels and buildings. Diaper Genie's available? Sorry.
Just like so, that's so many ways for a daycare.
Don't get me going.
The noise of children is a sweet noise, not
Irritants.
Irritations are not.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. We've been good. We'll try. Okay, any other questions related to that? Fiscal considerations, the proposed use will not require such additional public facilities or devices as to create a net fiscal burden upon the village greater than those which characterize uses permitted by right.
Well done.
We're not done. No. So I think the board has asked you some questions related to the development of this property. Answers to questions like Pat regarding the composition of the shutters are forthcoming. Did anybody have any specific requests for Robert at this point? Okay. As Chris noted, we will do a few things. We will address the village as the lead agency on this project. We will address the recommendation for a special use permit, and we will share any other questions within this board's purview with Chris related to this project, so they can be communicated to the representatives.
Even though I know we're not making a motion on this project tonight, we do have to vote formally on the trustee as lead
Yes.
agency. So.
Yes. So, would anybody like to make a motion regarding the Village of Cooperstown trustees serving as the lead agency on this project?
I can do it.
Okay, thank
I'd like
you.
to make a motion that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Cooperstown serve as the lead agency on this project at 1 Beaver Street.
I second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Liz votes yes.
Thank you.
Bernie, yes.
Aaron, yes.
Great.
David abstains.
Okay.
As a Bassett.
We understand, David. Thank you. Since David is abstaining as a Bassett employee, Jay, would you like to vote related to the motion?
Jay, yes.
Thank you, Jay. Awesome, welcome. Okay, we also need an additional motion, right, Chris, regarding a recommendation for special use, and Cindy, I can't read my notes from our conversation. Was it just the special use permit, or do we need an additional motion? Okay, good. I thought I was supposed to do something else.
I wanted to
Go ahead.
ask a question, and it's open-ended in terms of, I'm not sure which way I would lean toward, but I'm curious as to the aspect of the two different types of shutters. Did you want to keep the two different types of shutters just because it was there, or do you think that actually looks good? Or I'm just curious because it seems like sometimes maybe there's a little bit of a bind between what would be most aesthetic and perhaps historic, and trying to stay with the existing or making a change that might actually accommodate it more.
Well, the intent was to match what was there,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why we went with two. My personal preference, if it were my home or my daycare, I'd like to have one type throughout, though, again, just because it has existed in that condition since the 30s, the idea was we kept it that way.
I'm curious whether the board would be open to a change to one type of shutter if it was historic, or whether the fact that it's been that way carries weight.
I would like the board to, if Robert can provide us with the historic reference you're referring to share that photo. And if board members with that photo can go and take a look at Harrison House and give it some thought. That's what I'll ask people to do between now and the next meeting, so we can have a kind of more informed discussion on that. And I'm sorry, this is coming down to shutters, but I think they're thoughtful questions.
I do have one question for you on the rear. Right, on the rear rendering, with the new addition, with the portions that sort of stick out a bit, there are quarter round lights. I'm not sure what they are. Quarter round, yes,
Fan lights?
those quarter round things, which I'm thinking are mimic some
Yes.
quarter rounds on either side of a masonry chimney, but I don't actually see those. anywhere?
And these will also be evidenced if once I provide that.
Okay,
existing
and so that
elevations.
is that a
Yeah.
window or is it a louvered thing?
Up here in the existing building, we have a louvered, it's like an attic vent.
Oh, okay,
And we
okay.
wanted to mimic that aesthetic as well. It could also serve as a functional intake for some type of.
Okay.
So they would be added here.
They're just shown on that
They're not
rendering. They exist, but they're not shown.
The new ones are on the left image, so it's right above the second story window.
Right. But they're missing from either side of the chimney in that drawing.
Those would remain.
Okay. They just, without them shown on that elevation, on either side of the chimney, they don't make a ton of sense. That was my only question, because
they exist, but then
they're
they're
not
not
on
shown in
that
the drawing.
picture, right? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Okay,
but they do exist, they will remain.
okay.
Okay.
I mean, if they have a function
They-
in the addition, in the new construction addition, if they have a function, that's great. If they don't have a function, I don't know that they're necessary. There's kind of, I don't know. But anyway, I'm glad to know that the others, the originals, will remain where they are. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions at this point? Okay. So if there are any other questions that come up among the board, Chris will pass them along. Thank you. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert.
Thank you.
Okay, has 50 Walnut come in? Nope, okay. Has 83 Pioneer come in? Nope.
83 Pioneer?
Oh. Oh, somebody came in. Hello, how are you?
Good, I'm Charlie Reman, I'm
Hi,
the builder at the projected project. Not quite as elaborate as it was.
Would you like to tell us what's being proposed this time for 83 Pioneer, please?
Yes, carport, approximately 12 feet wide at the front edge and 16 feet long at along parallel to the building, to comply with all of the codes, regulations, and architectural standards that you folks would like to see done. I've been a builder for 50 years. I'm a retired licensed master plumber from Oneonta. I've been living in Middlefield for 20 years. My cabinet work was featured in Metropolitan Home Magazine, and I'll build so that it looks like it grew there, actually. I guess that's all I really. Chris mentioned that there's questions, I'm here to answer them.
Great. Okay, so not sure how does the existing, it says existing portico, but existing overhang roof on that back door on the driveway side kind of dovetail in?
Absolutely. From across the street, you'll be able to see the portico on the side entrance, and the roof that I'm proposing to build will look exactly like it. We'll have the exact same reveals on the wainscot on the face of it, and all the trim will be exactly the same measurement, within plus or minus a quarter of an inch.
And then, because the proposed carport is going to cover existing windows, are there any structural changes to the house related to those existing windows?
No.
Okay.
The first floor windows will be below the carport, below the rafters of the carport. And there's sort of an intermediate window, which is,
These two little windows
Yeah,
here and here?
may I approach you?
Yep, certainly. And so this window, correct?
That window right there, so the roof will actually go in between this window and that window, and so it will be actually below the height of the side door entryway.
Okay, and then the window that's closer to that side door entryway is not under that?
No,
Carport.
that's behind. That's about 18 feet, it's 29 feet from, I believe, from the face of the house to the side entryway. And the carport is just going to be built big enough to cover one car.
So the carport is pretty close to the front of the house, correct?
It's 36 inches from the front of the house. It begins 36 inches back on the right corner. Electrical surface, and it will be start behind the electrical surface by about 3 inches. And there's still 16 feet, and it will be, it's hard to, in scale, but I've measured it all out. Nothing's going to be, the last thing I want to do is actually have a service coming through the roof of a carport. So.
And is there a reason it's not set farther back? Is it to accommodate that other window, or?
Yes. Well, the reason is that 16 feet goes in there where that's as big as the Shelbys wanted to build.
But I wonder why it's so close to the front of the house. That's why I'm wondering why it's not set farther back.
So that they can get their car under the carport and have, the basic reason for constructing it is so that they don't have to shoulder drive their senior citizens. And it's been.
I think if they put it farther back, there's a window right here.
Yeah, that was what I was
Right, so if they
thinking.
move it farther back, it would impede.
The window's higher.
If it got any further back, it
Right,
would
the
hit
stairs
that
actually
first
come
floor
out the front
window.
here, so it would impact the stairs as well as that window that's
Yeah.
there.
Okay. Okay,
I proposed to them that the roof had go above that intermediate window, but Mrs. Shelby is real sensitive to having light coming through there.
that window.
So it actually, architecturally, it will be more congruent with the rear roof, and it'll pose some building issues, but nothing that's insurmountable.
And Chris, in terms of, are there any issues with property lines that have to be addressed by other
The
boards?
ZBA is having
Okay.
a public hearing for an area variance. That all seems to be going smoothly.
Right, and I have spoken to the Shelbys, and they're going, I'm not sure exactly how, I know that in other municipalities, they send out letters to people within 200 feet or 250 feet. So I'm sure the Shelbys will be more than accommodating and approaching their neighbors. So could I get an idea about what I should tell them to, talk to their neighbors, how far away?
Does no, they'll be notified anyway. There'll be a notification
Oh, okay.
that everyone will get.
All right, well, they'll start.
Can I ask about the posts? They're not just treated posts, they're clad.
No, there are treated posts. They'll be 4 feet in the ground on concrete footings, but they'll be clad with the #1 pine or better which will be wrapped around it to exactly duplicate what's on the front porch.
And exactly duplicate, just Charlie, for clarification, there's a kind of footer that's a little bit more dimension than the rest of the post. Is it gonna be a straight post, or do you plan on treating that the same way at the bottom as well?
No, there'll be baseboard trim, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be above the ground by a couple of inches, just so that. I'm also a New York State licensed home inspector. I've been doing it for 20 years. And, you know, in order to preserve anything that's built, like to keep lumber off the ground, away from the grade.
I
Or
understand.
you could consider like a hardy plank
Yeah.
product.
Right.
whichever
We
way.
have approved a paintable composite, or
Absolutely, yeah, hardy plank.
especially at ground level. Okay, does anybody have any questions as we kind of look at this?
The driveway stays the same, and it's, yeah, as we see in the,
The
the driveway stays the same,
Absolutely.
And-
The driveway is all pavers.
and the plan is to have two cars, one in
I
front
think
of the other.
it'd be just one car. It's only be 16 feet long.
16, not 10.
I think they only have one vehicle.
The posts are set on concrete footers, are those beyond the driveway then? That's, or,
Are you removing pavers in order to install the
Actually,
concrete footer? Are they outside the boundary of the driveway,
Yes,
the
they
footers?
are.
Okay.
I think that part of what, what I did last week was request a variance
Right.
because we're really close to
the neighbor's property?
the property.
And that's what the zoning board will address, but it, just for our understanding of whether the footers are actually within the
They won't be
footprint of the
on the
pavers.
pavers, they'll be in the grass along the edge there.
Pat, do you have any questions?
I do. Is there any structure that people, that anyone here is aware of that fulfilled the function of a carport on a house that old? In other words, if we look back to the Jacob's House carport, it's 1936,
Jacob's.
and that's
remind me.
apparently the first.
Mhm.
So is there a previous structure that would, for carriages, let's say, or for earlier cars, fulfill that function? Because we had another house on Pioneer that wanted to put up a carport, and
This is the house.
this is the same house?
Yes, this is the same house.
Isn't there a carport there?
No. They put up a temporary structure. That was a few years ago. They put up a
Right.
temporary structure because we denied that particular proposal, partially because it was not as thoughtfully designed or integrated. And so for a while, there was a temporary structure there to serve their
Okay, right, that's what I
purposes.
thought.
So this is the one that we had denied previously. And so I understand your question in terms of historically, were there carports?
But there were a structure that's analogous to a carport.
I mean, we have the very big house on Nelson that was built with a carport. The very big house on Nelson, the beefsteak mansion, excuse me.
The porte cochere is the
Right,
analogous structure.
okay.
But not a more
But-
modest house like this
But a
historically.
porte cochere usually was an unloading and an offloading thing for carriages into the house. Is that, does this have a door into it?
No,
No, there's no door from underneath the porte cochere. There's a door underneath the proposed carport. There's a door behind it.
So it's 3 feet away, it's 3 foot down.
chairs.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions,
Yeah,
Pat?
something more elaborate like that would match the house.
Right.
Would weigh the house down.
Right.
Dave, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Erin, how about you?
I do not have any questions.
Bernie?
Like, I think Pat raises a relevant point in terms of something, an anomaly for that house.
It's a struggle we had when we reviewed the application the first time. The proposal was not as thoughtful the first time. We looked at and thought carefully about other examples in the village where carports have been added, even though we review every property in kind of a vacuum. There are certainly pre-HCARB examples of carport additions. Charlie, other than the cement footers, this is kind of a devil's advocate question. This is a somewhat reversible change. There's nothing other than a kind of a leaderboard, and there are not a lot of dramatic impacts on the structure, correct?
Absolutely. It's really not a very fancy
Well,
house, actually.
so I look at reversibility, but this board also weighs the impact or visibility from the street, which it does have an impact on, and that's why I asked why there was this space in the back, why it wasn't set a little farther back or closer to those back stairs. I understand.
Because that's what they want.
Right, and I understand the desire for keeping that window uncovered.
But it's only 3 feet, I think we're talking.
Yeah, it doesn't make a huge difference either.
But I think your point about reversibility is something that was on the top of my mind, and it doesn't sound like you're gonna do a whole lot of changes to where you mount the roofing onto the house in terms
Now,
of.
I'll remove the siding where I attach the roof, and, make sure that the ledger board is, or the ridge board in this case, is bolted into existing stud work there, and
But it's ultimately reversible one could,
Right, you could take no original component of the house is being removed, and you could remove this carport without any significant damage to the house, right? So
well, you'd have to replace siding
Yeah.
where the
Right.
framing attached.
But you haven't changed the house per se
Absolutely
otherwise. We do still grapple with the change of the house from the streetscape in terms of the appearance with the carport. But I think the lot is a difficult lot to build a garage on, or the position of the house and the driveway doesn't allow the applicant to build a garage beyond the house because of the narrow lot, if I remember that argument correctly from the previous application.
Yeah, and the north side of the house is on the property line also, or very close to the property line. So, but I think that, there will be nothing unappealing with the structure when I finish building it, because I'm putting my name on it, first of all. And I don't want anything that I build not to be first class. And the other thing is, I think that, it may not be a component of the architectural continuity, but the quality of life for the Shelbys will be greatly improved for them to be able to park their car under cover. And I think it'll, if they're putting another carport on the other side of the house, it would be, congruous, but it'll look great. And I guess if it doesn't, then you'll make us take it down, so, I don't know.
We certainly prefer not to do that.
Right, and,
Too, right.
you know, I do kind of, you know, struggle with that firm kind of streetscape, but also want to make sure structures remain livable for the residents, especially our older residents in our community. Can you tell me about the roof materials?
Well, I'll use architectural shingles with 2 layers of either asphalt underlayment or self-adhered ice and water shield.
And your
Because
pitch is appropriate?
The pitch is borderline for using shingles unless there's 2 layers of asphalt underlayment and if need be, I don't know, I'll, you know, haven't gotten the exact pitch, quite honestly, here, you know, but I think you're gonna be about 312, which is like the minimal pitch for, but that's what the pitch is on the
front
portico
porch.
right behind us, so it's gonna look just like the other one, so,
And are the boards, I did not get to drive by today, I know the house well enough, but are the boards vertical boards on that facing of that rear porch? You have them drawn vertically?
they're vertical.
Okay.
There is, on the edge of the portico in the back and also on the front porch roof is wainscot, which is, you know, still pretty standard from what it was for, you know, the past 100 years. So it'll be wainscot.
And that's what you're proposing is same
Absolutely.
same
I think I wrote
dimensions?
that
Okay,
on the original drawing.
so same dimensions for that wainscot as well?
Well, they'll be within a quarter of an
Right.
inch or.
But it's
That's what we
comparable,
think of as beadboard.
yeah.
I beg your pardon, sir?
Uh,
Oh, okay,
I
I'm
asked,
sorry.
I asked if this is what we think of as beadboard.
Okay.
Yeah,
yes.
beadboard, yeah.
Wainscot and beadboard are interchangeable, pretty much.
Well, it's gonna have a bead on it.
Okay, well, I'm trying to get a view of it.
I mean, if I can't find something that's really, really close, I'm a cabinet maker and I could duplicate it exactly. But I don't think anyone will be able to tell the difference from,
No, my question was that it would be similar dimensionally, so.
absolutely. And it won't,
Nobody's gonna measure
it'll be
it.
full 3/4 inch thick boards, not 3/8 inch thick.
Single board as opposed to plywood.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, Whiteman Lumber makes a board which is 6 inches wide and it's got a center bead on it and edge beads. And that's what I'll be using.
It's a nice piece.
If it's close enough, not close enough, but really, you know,
No, I like that.
not
I like their stuff.
not totally analogous.
Do you have any questions? Okay, Dave, do you?
Just,
I have another question.
Oh,
I
sorry,
see
Pat.
I frankly am thrilled with the idea of the detachability. Because I've often thought of that in the context of my own daughter. But is there any way that we could see what the attachment mechanism was, how you attach this piece to the existing structure without damaging the existing structure? In other words, are there any fasteners that you can think of that would make it so that if somebody comes down and wants to inspect it, it can just be taken off?
Did you say you're removing siding and attaching the ledger board to the structure, to the
frame.
to the
I'll
framing?
find out where the
So
framing is
he's-
behind the
With-
wall sheathing.
With bolts?
Mm-hmm.
Screws?
And I'll
or-
use Timberlock screws, which are probably 5 or 6 inches long.
Okay, indeed.
And
And they're relatively narrow compared to like carriage bolts, so they leave less damage for.
right, they're a modern technology, not on my hardy board, which was no hardy board when I was 20 years old.
So,
There was hardly any pressure treated lumber back then.
so the timber lock is nice in this case in concerns of removability because it doesn't really damage, it's basically not much larger, even though it has the strength of a carriage puller.
Right, and that's accepted in International Residential Code, which is what I believe, the 2019 code is what New York State is going by, I believe. As I mentioned, I'm a New York State licensed home inspector, and I know what's right and what's not right. And when people ask me when they're buying a house, they say, well, I want to do this, that, and the other thing, I tell them, go to the code enforcement officer, ask him what he or she or they want, and give them that exact thing.
Great.
That's what I do. That's what I do for a living, and I'm also still a builder.
In the spirit of that, the zoning enforcement officer has a question for you about
Yes, sir.
lighting. About lighting, we have these elderly people who are going to be getting out of their cars, and I assume there's a light on the existing portico entry. Does it shed enough light on, to where the carport is, or do you plan on putting lighting in?
I hadn't really considered it, but I'm sure that we'll do whatever is necessary to do it, yeah.
So if you do, come back for a field change and we can add that.
Okay.
We wouldn't have to do a whole new process if you.
And if it's interior lighting, we don't need to address it. So if you have a light inside
Well,
to
it'll be,
provide safety.
That's true. If it's exterior, then this board would be concerned with if you put an exterior light that's visible from the street. But if it's just a matter of a functional interior light, that's really between you and the county.
right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
So other than removing boards to expose the studs and so forth,
Excuse me.
rather than, other than removing the boards to expose the existing stud structure, the existing,
Framing,
I'm sorry,
framing.
framing,
It's
thank you.
okay.
The framing behind it, you're not gonna affect the existing structure other than drilling into it with these rather conservative,
Right, they'll be 3/8 thick, and probably we'll be going through, there's probably 1-inch sheathing boards on the house, and 2.5 inches, so the ledger board, and then I'd want to penetrate the wall at least 3 inches, so a 6-inch timber lock screw, which.
So the siding, go ahead.
oh no, I was making room for you in terms of the.
Well, what I'm concerned about is the siding goes, but the sheathing stays. Is that
The
correct?
siding goes, but the sheathing stays, and where the roofing material terminates to the wall, the flashing will go underneath the siding and up 6 inches and be properly sealed. So it might mean taking off an existing board and replacing it after the roof sheathing the flashing goes up. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
We have to vote on this tonight.
I think the homeowner's goal is to begin construction before the snow. However, if the board is not ready to vote, we don't have to vote. And Chris, do I read this correctly? The November 7th ZBA meeting is when the,
Public hearing
okay,
for the variance.
okay. So then the ZBA could decide on November 7th, correct?
Yes.
So if there are things you would like to look at, we can revisit it at the November 14th meeting. Are there specific questions you have for Charlie that you'd like satisfied or responded to before then?
I can certainly have them by then.
Or by giving him time to respond by, for example, November 7th, so we have them before the
Okay.
meeting.
I will either do that or desist.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the whole
I
thing.
said I will either do that or
Desist. Desist. Okay, maybe for planning purposes, with the understanding that we will vote at the November meeting, are there any other concerns that would stand in the way of a vote on this project? Are there any other things that kind of, and is, if, you'll let Chris know either way? Okay.
Certainly.
Okay, you want to take a look at the building, is that?
I want to take a look at the building, I want to take a look at buildings of its type. For me, it would be hard to design that.
Yeah.
That structure to look like it was part of the building.
I understand. And Aaron, do you want to share that picture with Pat, just so he has it? Can you email
Sure.
that to him? Aaron's going to show you an earlier picture of this building, just so you can see some of its evolution too. And if you want to reply all to one of Chris's emails, maybe you can share it with everybody.
Will do.
So we will give Pat time to do the research he needs to do, and we have a November 14th meeting. If Pat will let Chris know what he might need from Charlie before the next meeting, and that would be well before November 7th, so Charlie has time to respond a week before our meeting, okay?
Charlie, have you seen any examples of something happening like this in terms of a similar type of addition? Have you seen any around in terms of that? We might be able to get
Looking around, haven't
yeah,
really
okay,
seen that
yeah.
much, quite honestly,
Yeah.
and it's really, the nature of the property itself that really prevents, I'm sure that they would love to build a 2-car garage next to their house if they had enough room, but it's a pretty narrow lot.
I was just thinking it would, if you have seen examples of a similar type of thing, that we'd be able to get an eyes on.
Well, I'm inspecting a house on Maple Street tomorrow, as my primary profession. And while I'm driving around town, I'll be a little bit more diligent.
Bernie, there are other examples of carport additions in the village. And I can tell you, not all of them are very thoughtful. So, I can certainly point you towards some to look at. Aaron, I don't know what you were gonna say.
Yeah, I just want to speak on behalf of this proposed carport addition. I think that the idea of fairly minimally invasive structure that is essentially going to cause no permanent damage to the main residence, that is essentially reversible. And I agree that it will have an impact on the appearance of the house from the street, but in terms of the overall impact on the property and the usability of the property, I think this is a very limited impact way to make the property more usable for current and future residents. I don't think there is a better way to provide covered parking on this lot.
Right, and parenthetically, I mean, the adjoining neighbors are all, have all given their verbal approval to the Shelbys, so.
And that is for the zoning board to kind of weigh, but, Dave, you had a question, I think.
It was actually about the zoning board, and if we did have a vote or make a motion, whether we'd have to make a contingent upon
The approval of the
variance.
zoning board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is somebody going to say something
Well,
else?
he wants to do research, so.
Yes, yes. I just wanted to make sure Dave's
Yeah.
question was addressed before we moved on. And I don't disagree with Aaron at all, but it is something to weigh carefully, because part of the purview of this board is to consider the impact on the streetscape. And so, Pat, you kind of think about what your concerns are, convey them to Chris, he'll convey them to Charlie, and we'll address them. Chris will convey them to Charlie, and they'll be addressed at the next meeting. Or if they are, mitigated by you looking at the house and kind of really sizing things up, then you'll let Chris know. Okay? Okay, and we will revisit the application at the November 14th meeting then.
And I would second what Aaron is saying, that the design you come up with and the way you're doing it really looks optimal in terms of how it could be done. So.
It's really no other way to do it except the right way there.
And it's a tricky spot, and we want to keep our residents, especially our older residents in their homes, as in safe ways as long as we can, so.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you, Charlie, very much for the thoughtful design and for taking your time, and I'm sorry we didn't invite you to sit down, you really could have.
Well,
Next month you can sit down.
When I was a young man, I worked for this lady that was probably my age, and she used to say, sitting is fatal, so.
Well.
Thank you all for your time.
Sometimes standing is dangerous with this board. Thank you, Charlie. Okay, Averill Road project, 5138 Averill Road. I had not seen an address on this project before, so now it's got an address.
11 by 17s, and then we have two larger ones, so.
Are these updated?
Yes, these are updated.
Thank you. We can share. Aaron and I will
Does anybody
share.
want to share a big one?
Yes.
I'll take a big one. All right. And there's another one here.
Okay, well, Madam Chairman, my name is Matt Hamlin, I represent Templeton Foundation
And yeah.
in this process. We don't need to hear much from lawyers today, but we need to hear from the architects and the other design professionals. So I have with me, on behalf of the Underbeers and Farrell, Vice President of Facilities for Basketball Network, Robert Zaleski, who works for Kendra. We have the lead architecture firm, Joe Brown, in Architects in Syracuse. And then Scott Freeman, on behalf of Keppinger Freeman, he's a landscape architect. And then we have a consultant and hopefully contractor, Josh Evans, on behalf of Simple Integrity. It's my understanding, Joe can confirm this, that the project, we were here back in
January 10th.
January 10th, the project has not substantially materially changed from an architectural standpoint, but there are some more bells and whistles related to shielding and so on and so forth. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe to make the presentation on behalf of the architecture.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, I'm going to ask Scott to come up. So again, we were here January 10th, and we received an certificate of appropriateness at that time. You all know what happened with the lawsuit and everything, so that's why we're kind of going back through this process again. We're in the process of redoing the secret, and that's kind of, we wanted to come back here, show you some of the changes that have made, very, very minor changes, and then go through and get any of your questions and any of your comments and incorporate that. So I just want to start with the site plan at the page 2, and Scott, if everybody wants to follow along,
maybe you can, everybody's looking through this. You can go to the second page, maybe just to go on the same page. Yep. So
the first page just shows you where it is in the village. The second page shows the site based on the site plan, basically, of the entire property. That funny shaped plan, that is the entire property that we're building on. We're only building on a corner of it.
basically I'll go over in 90 words or less. 50 acre parcel, from a site plan perspective, we have to be under a certain percentage of tree disturbance, which we are. The plans that you saw months ago have virtually remained unchanged, made a minor change to the road, but it still has an entrance point, an exit point. It has a tower at the top, and we have the same number of units. We have our townhomes and our apartment building on a loop road. Things that we're going to get into for purposes of this meeting are, for materials from a site perspective, we have 3 outdoor pavilions, we have a playground, we have some fencing for the dumpster waste enclosure, and we have some site lighting. Other than that, the plant materials are on the plan. I heard your questions on previous presentations, and I'd rather just wait for that to come up instead of just keep talking up here. I think the primary really is Joe with the building. So I think as he explains the building, I'm going to trip over this line here. I'll answer questions on the site once we get through the building, if that's okay, Joe.
Yeah, because we want to kind of follow back on the site. So if you go to the architectural plans, page 4, this shows the apartment building. The apartment building is roughly 14,000 square feet, ground floor level, both levels are the same. There's 16 one-bedroom and 8 two-bedroom units for a total of 24 units in the apartment building. And we'll get to the townhomes next. So basically, as you can see, we have a center entry. We also have 3 stairs. We have 2 fire exit stairs on both ends and a center communicating stair in the center. And we also have our utility rooms, our mail room, and all that in the center. Double loaded corridor. Each wing has 2 bedrooms and 4 one-bedroom units. Again, it's a 2-story. If you go to the next page, you'll see the elevations. So when we first started thinking of apartment building in Cooperstown, we kind of looked at Fernley Over as kind of our as a good example of kind of an understated architectural style that very colonial, and we just felt that was a good example to look at. And as you can see in our elevations, you could see some of in our renderings, you could see some of that characteristic there. So in this elevation, you can see that we have exterior siding is going to be a clapboard siding. It's going to be an LP smart siding. We did bring some examples and samples for us to kind of go through. But I think you've all seen the clapboard siding, and it's going to be a smooth texture. They have it smooth and a rough, and we're going to plan on going smooth. Number 2 is a trim and fascia, corner boards. It is also going to be a smart side, and that will be the water table on the bottom, along the base, and corner boards and the fascia board. The roofing will be an architectural asphalt shingle. I got a GAF, a Timberline sample here for everyone to see. Very, very standard asphalt shingle. And any questions on that? The windows will be double hung. One of the things that we are going to be doing here is because it's going to be a passive house, which is, and Josh will be able to talk a little bit more about it. He's done a lot of the passive house designs, and I'm sure you've heard about that because he's done some in the village. And so the windows will be what was the name of the manufacturer?
They're a Yarrow window. It's a Schuco product. Same windows that you've seen on 45 Delaware, 72 Susquehanna, 10 Chestnut, 10 Pioneer, and 19 Hill Street.
So it's a triple pane window, highly efficient. So that, but it'll still have the double hung look, a very traditional look. The doors will will be, we have some sliders, but most of them, the sliders will be actually in the townhome. But we have the front entry door, and again, that'll be a Yarrow entry door. So one of the things that, it's hard to do with a large building is keep it under the height, maximum height. And so this building here is at 28 feet, plus or minus, give an inch or two to the very center of the roof. Obviously the chimney's above that, but that's not, in the zoning, you get, it's less than 10%, but that's not counted for the 30-foot max. So all the townhome will have a 28-foot allowable. So the next image is actually the renderings of what this will look like. And again, this is why I kind of brought it firmly over. It's got a lot of the same characteristics of the chimneys and bays, projecting bays. We have a covered porch area in the front. We have an area in the back for gatherings of the apartment building.
Sorry, the gathering area, that's this pagoda structure, is that where you're? I see the children have like a playground or something, but for the grown-up?
So we'll go back to the site plan to see where those are. The pavilion is all the way to the north of the project site, north side of the apartment building. You'll see a pavilion and then a playground. The gathering area that I was talking about is just gonna be a brick paver area in the center, overlooking the pond on the back, and there's no structure there. It's just open. And then there's another, two other smaller pavilions that are between the, you can see them here, right here, and between these two, and then there's one all the way down on the southern end. So there's gonna be one there, and one there, and then a larger pavilion there. Do you see those?
That's these round, that's.
Yes,
exactly.
Thank you. Any other questions on the apartment building? So the next page.
So I just have one,
Sure.
I have one question, it's not really related to the purview of this board, but how many of these units will be accessible?
So all of the first floor of the apartment buildings will be an adaptable unit in the New York State Code. It's a B-type adaptable unit, all the ground floor.
Okay, great.
So when you go to the townhomes, we'll see the townhomes, all of the bedrooms and the main two on the flanking sides, all their bedrooms are upstairs.
Okay.
So they are gonna be 2-bedroom units. The ones, if you go straight back, they're gonna have a 3-bedroom unit in the back of each of these townhome clusters, and they will be handicap accessible. They'll have one master or a primary bedroom for handicap accessibility.
Okay.
So
There are 4 of them?
there's 4 total, yes, 4 total. So in the townhomes, there's 12 units total. There's two clusters of them, and in each cluster there's 6 townhomes. And of those 6, 4 of them are 2-bedroom, and 2 of them are 3-bedroom accessible. So you see the floor plan there, and you can see what that how that's made up. And this cluster really kind of comes back from the Fern layover and how they have clusters and connections, and the townhomes are connected by like a breezeway. And so that's kind of the aesthetic. So the next page is the elevation, page 8. And again, we have the same type of siding, same windows. Here's where we do have some sliders for the back so that they can go out and have a patio in the back. And then we'll have entry doors, but all the entry doors are under cover. Any question on that?
There's no cover over the sliders?
No. Oh. So if you go to the next page, you'll see the renderings there of the townhomes. And each is around a courtyard. So again, 6-on-12 slope roof, chimneys, very kind of a classic colonial look to it. We like this color, and we're planning on going with this color. We haven't specifically selected which one that represents there, but I did bring the LP siding. So as you know, that there's a smooth and then a rough, and we're gonna plan on using the smooth.
In many older colonial houses, you had eaves. I see in this depiction, there's a bit of an eave in the front, but there's no on the side. It's just basically flush. I'm wondering, is that proposed as a cost-saving measure, or is it actually an aesthetic choice that we prefer not to have eaves and not to have that side of the house protected from the weather?
Well, yeah, we could go, it is a little bit of a cost-saving measure, but it was also more of a, again, we were kind of going back to Burnley over, and we're kind of taking all their details there and trying to use them. So that's kind of where that's what they have there. We could increase that. You're talking about the gable ends.
Yeah, the gable ends, but
it
just seems,
yeah. I mean, really, those increasing that really gives you a little shadow line, but it really doesn't protect the wall.
Well, it's also an aesthetic.
It's totally aesthetic, yes, because of that shadow line.
And similarly, like where the roof comes down and you have the returns, you've got what some call like a pork chop return, where it's basically covered up. There's not even like a poor man's eave, as they call it. Like on 10 Chestnut, which we referred to, they didn't do pork chops. They actually have the poor man's return with a little bit of shingles, just to give it some
like a
flavor.
Like that comes
Essentially,
back.
all houses are boxes and triangles on top, and what makes them have uniqueness, I think, is a lot of those details. And I see you don't have it, and I know a lot of houses don't, but I was just curious if that was an aesthetic choice, or if it was, again, something, a cost-saving measure.
It was just to simplify the look. We've gone through with the owner different designs, and when we hit on this one, they gravitated towards this because of the simplicity. Now you guys are the historic.
I think Chris is just asking, I actually lean toward not adding as much historic detail to differentiate and to not mimic.
Yeah, we're not trying to build it like it was.
That's my personal.
In 100 years ago, today's with that sensitivity.
And I think, I know this has been stated at this these meetings before I was appointed to this board, but it's not required that new construction look like a colonial building.
But I think Chris was pointing out that giving something some style isn't necessarily
Right,
to
and that,
recreate
what I'm saying is totally separate from Chris's conversation about the returns. I'm just saying it doesn't have to look colonial in order to be constructed in Cooperstown. It's not a rule.
Chris, are you familiar with Friendly? Just.
I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, so it's the dorms for doctors. No, it's just on the east side of the river across from Bassett. It's the dorms that sit off of Mill Street on Fernley, near Avril. And that's when he's referring to, I joke with the dorms, they're townhouses. I apologize. That's when he's referring to mimicking those, that development, and kind of just take a ride up there next time you're in that neck of the woods, just so you can see.
One of the things that we don't like about Friendly is it's not handicap accessible. There's multiple layers. It's a split level. And you really have a level, and then another level, and then another level, and then another level. And it's anti-accessible, really. It's very difficult for even people that aren't in a wheelchair or have problems. So what we kind of looked at is we like this aesthetic, we like how it's got kind of a simple elegance to it, but we don't want to we want to make something accessible to most people. So we're trying to use it as a guide, but not copy it because of some of the things that didn't work out so well.
They're also awkward to live in. I've not lived in one, but I've visited many, and they have not the
Yeah, so
best.
you know about the levels, right?
Yeah, so the
It's
levels, and then the acoustics, and the high ceiling in the living area, and it's just, it's not a very good use of volume.
Right, but we did like the exterior.
Yep, and I can see that here.
It's a very 80s thing, right?
Oh, totally. Was it late
Yes.
80s or early 90s were those?
Late
Was it
70s?
70s? What?
Late
Oh my
70s,
gosh.
Wow, yeah.
Before 88.
Super 70s, well, yeah.
That's the 80s.
Given,
No sunken living room though. I mean, I guess kind of.
some of them may. Who
Shag
knows?
carpet.
Your comment about acoustics made me think of something else. That I see between each apartment, it seems to be there's like a double wall. Just know from having stayed in various motels in the world, it's so annoying to hear people through the walls. And I'm thinking, why didn't they spend the extra $100 to fix this sound problem? So I'm just curious if you guys thought about sound. I don't know what's going on between these apartments for sound mitigation, so we can all hear each other.
So yeah, the New York State code requires a STC of at least 50 between apartments. And it's not easy to do, really. I mean, you need either a resilient channel or a double wall. So we're trying to, in this building, when it comes to energy code and sound, we're trying to do better than energy code. Now, Passive House blows away the energy code. And it is very, very tight, and the insulation levels, in the roof, instead of R38, we're gonna get R80. So this is, so we're going above and beyond based on our code. And yeah, so we're gonna try to get an SDC of 55 minimally, so.
Another question of going above and beyond. Passive houses require an air handler to remove, because they're so tight, right? Air's
Yeah,
in and out.
exactly.
So you have air handlers, so if the power goes out, what happens to people, what happens to the air quality of the people inside when the fan is no longer exhausting?
Windows?
Yeah, we have operable windows.
Just asking.
Yep.
I don't know if there's a backup.
It's really cheap.
Building my
Give that a couple days, it'll take a couple days before the air quality even comes down to a normal house.
So I was just curious if there was like a backup generator system that runs the essential services or anything like that.
So we did talk about a generator. We weren't planning on doing a generator. It's not required at all. But we decided not to.
Sure, just curious.
It's super amazing how these type buildings, nothing happens in them when the power goes out. So I worked at Fenimore for a very long time, power goes out, everyone's like, oh my God, but the new addition, the thaw collection wing, nothing happened in there over 3 days. Nothing.
Everything stayed.
The only thing that happened was people panicked about if something was gonna happen. That was as dramatic as it got.
But so just to be clear, there's no backup generator system needed for external lighting or anything like that. It's all on the grid.
That's what we're planning, yes.
Just to be clear.
I have a question going back to the patio doors, the sliders. How's that back area being treated? Are there simple patios, pads?
Yeah, we were planning on just having concrete pads.
I assume there was something. Okay. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, our next, so the last sheet kind of shows, I think that's the last sheet, no, I'm sorry, we have Passive House. But the last sheet are some of the samples of our architectural elements. Again, we'll start on the left. architectural elements of siding and trim boards, LP smart side, smooth finish. There's some examples of some of the trim that we plan on doing. There's a nice big rake eave on that. That's what you're talking about there, right?
Yeah.
We have our roof shingles as we talked about, and then our triple pane Yarrow windows. And then we have those patio doors at Schuco. Site elements.
Actually, it's interesting, the playground equipment, Kendra and I were just talking, is basically metals and plastics. The metals typically aluminum powder coated. We're looking at a color scheme, something natural. We're still playing with the colors. And in the picture, you'll see a tan material, but we're actually going to use there's different ways for surfacing. You could use wood chips. You could use bright colored rubber that they pour. It's pretty unenvironmental. And then there's actually, we're going to use an artificial turf, green with a little bit of brown, and we're going to go with it. Kendra, actually, you still have it right there. You can go, Bob, show them that. So, this is a playground surface material, so they build a playground around in here. Then there's a rubber pad and there's drainage stone, and it meets the criteria of a fall height. So it's a really nice way to be naturalized and not make it look that natural environment. So that's actually on the north end of the site where the second road is next to the pavilion. So you can help me out. That'll probably be painted white wood or vinyl with a architectural shingle. I would imagine we're trying to.
All right, so the pavilion is going to be either a painted wood or like a PVC material that looks like wood. But we want that to match our trim, not be a stained wood, but have it white. Because all of our
whatever the final graphic looks like, it'll be accessible. A lot of these kits or models, people build them up on pedestals in town parks, and you got to come up with a stair or a ramp and surrounding with railing. So our concept is to keep it open on the side. You could move the furniture as the sun moves, and people could come in and out. And, not only people in a wheelchair, but moms with strollers. We do a lot of site and park design, so it's just nice to have everything accessible. You get a stroller under there, we can move the furniture in and out. So we're looking forward to that. And as Joe mentioned earlier, we have each set of townhomes will have their own smaller pavilion gathering area. So it kind of gives place for people to meet. To the right of that image on that page, we have kind of a generic, older, classic light pole. The buzzwords are, it's going to be dark sky compliant, it's going to have a shield, the light's going to be directed down, and the intent of this project is to illuminate, there'll be wall pack lighting on the building with the shields to provide some minimal lighting around it. It's not going to look like a used car showroom. And then the pole lights will be located along the parking lot and adjacent to the walkway. So it's not to be, the intent is not that you're not coming out of a supermarket into a super lit area. What we're looking for is a uniform, safe level of light that you could walk from the door to your car, feel comfortable and safe. That's our goal with the lighting. Then the fencing, you got that image is all over Cooperstown. The black wrought iron rail, it's everywhere. We're still deciding on the size of that. The location that actually is going around the basin, the big blue oval, that's going to have water in it for a good part of the year, and we're going to put another site feature. We're going to put aerators in there to keep the water moving, so it's not just stagnant water. We're going to have that perimeter fence. Getting back to the fence, could be wrought iron, could be aluminum, could be steel. We're still playing around with material, how that works.
Question about that. Sure, it's helpful in the drawing, but there's some ponds like this for water retention. You see, like in front of the opera, you've got a pond, and it's very nice. And then you go south of town, there's not to knock the Howard Johnson's or whatever it is, but there's some hotel there that's got like a pit of Hades. It's 15 meters deep, and it's not exactly
Yeah,
I would call it tasteful. I'm wondering where this falls.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And my engineer's not here, so I can keep brief and simple, but there's two types of stormwater facilities. One is those that hold water and those that don't. If you drive up there and look around in the soil, it's gonna hold water. And then what happens with this one, in blue, that's the mean low water, that's the mean water level. And when you get a big rain event, it fills up another 3 or 4 feet. Then in August, it's gonna drop down to that level and maybe down a little lower. So in June, July, August, when it's dry and hot, we're gonna have an area in there. So I can't predict the water level throughout the year. There's a little pond across the street, it goes up and down, but the intent here is it's gonna collect a lot of water. It will have water in it. And the Bassett maintenance team, Bob's crew will be out there mowing it and keeping it clean. So we look at it as an asset to the site, you know.
Yes, we wanted to make it such that the water will stay there. So it does look like a water feature, and it is an amenity, not a big bowl that's, filled with cattails or not even cattails.
According to the DEC, they like, there's a spectrum. They like things supernatural, so they would like, the DEC would like to see the reeds grow up and have it naturalized in succession with trees growing out of it. But we're gonna have a maintenance plan where twice a year, it's all the extra growth and the trees growing there are mowed down. We're gonna have tree screening along the road, we're gonna have trees along the building, but the basin area will be mowed so people can see it. But throughout the course of the year, there will be a lot of growth at the water's edge.
And so because of they're actually gonna have water in it, Bassett was worried about safety, and there's gonna be children here, so that is why we're having a fence put in around it, so that kids just don't walk into it. So that's the purpose of the fence. And when we were talking about the fence, that it's very similar, like a wrought iron fence. We do have some samples of aluminum if you ever want to see it.
They're all gonna be black.
They're all gonna be,
It's all gonna be
it's
black.
gonna look like all that.
Joe and Scott, I think Jay had a question too.
Oh, yeah, I have some questions regarding the site plan.
Sure, absolutely.
On page P3, what is the scale? It ain't on there.
Let me see. All right, it's not on there. This.
No, the omission.
That's a 24-foot wide drive. So
Okay.
And
they're drawn to scale. So
this building is 107 or 270 feet.
And the scale of the drawing is 1 in 20, 1 in 30, 1 in 40.
If I have an engineering scale, I
50.
can give it to you. Yeah, we made these for a presentation. These are not our construction drawings. But
Will there be import or export to the site?
has not been determined yet. We didn't get a full construction estimate yet. We're still, the water tank has not been, the water tank is generally placed, but it's not, the final location has not been placed and this final road has not been in. We're still in engineering calculation, so this road is gonna shift a little bit, but not a lot.
The roadways, what is the structure section for the roadway?
The roadways are a foot of drainage fabric or filter fabric or Verify road stabilization, 12 inches of stone by 4.5, 5 inches of asphalt. Curb along every sidewalk adjacent to the building, and there'll be accessible openings for people to go into the building. The ADA code is one handicap space for every 25. So we get that criteria.
Will that same structure section apply to the parking area?
Same thing, yeah, we're gonna use uniform parking throughout.
So that's where you're generating your dirt to build the rest of it?
Yeah, well, actually, we got to hollow out quite a significant area for the detention area, and we can use some of the soil is very tight. Clay material is not suitable for building fill, so the buildings are up higher than the detention pond, and they're a little, so we need to bring stone in below the building.
Bottom of the pond's about 12 feet below most of Averill Road.
I don't think it's 12 feet.
That's what the
It could.
contour intervals would indicate.
Well, yeah, I can calculate that, not off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
I can tell you this, that basin has been, if we, the detention basin we can submit for final engineering, that works and has all the calculations. How much cut or fill we have, we didn't get there yet. But that is the actual size of the basin required to mitigate the runoff and contain the water, which actually is a great, engineer's not here, but it's a significant reduction in containment of water to reduce downstream flooding, and it's
80% reduction.
Thank you, my attorney knows that, 80% reduction in runoff.
For site plan review purposes.
And the contour intervals, unless they're called out, are 1 foot,
There are twos on a lot of the plan, and in the basin, they might be ones.
and the basin, they appear to be 1.
Yeah. I mean, if the board would like, I could provide a 2-scale set of engineering drawings for further review of this.
And, we will be looking at this again, so, Jay, if that's something you're looking for, technically, our purview is the buildings,
Yeah.
the scaping per se, in terms of if it's appropriate. But I'm sure as the other boards review it, and as the village board reviews it, that might be helpful to have on hand for Chris to share as people
Well,
look
next
at it.
time we have a full set of engineering drawings separate from this presentation.
So,
My
Chris-
interest is, I'm a resident of Averill Road, and I'm just real curious about what it looks like.
Yeah, no, we have a cross section of the pond. We just weren't prepared for that for this meeting. We have it in our other set at the office.
I have one question.
Sure.
How is this property going to be maintained? I noticed there are no maintenance facilities up here at all.
It'll be maintained through the asset maintenance system.
Okay, so there's literally no kind of shed or storage room or anything.
There's a garbage.
There's a place, there's garbage,
Place
place for resident trash, right?
Yes.
Okay, but you're gonna haul everything you need up the hill.
Right now, that's the plan.
Okay,
That's what we do for many of our complaints.
okay.
Actually, there was one building finish that we didn't talk about.
Okay.
We thought for the trash and waste enclosures on the site, we don't want to do chain link, we don't want to do just planks of wood, but what we decided, I'll let Joe speak to this, is architecturally, we want the finish of the waste enclosure to look like the building. So at the distance, when you look at it, it speaks to the building, it doesn't speak to just some product that's dropped on.
Yeah, we're just planning to do an enclosure with, either probably just a painted wood enclosure. We were thinking about possibly a vinyl or something like that, but just for longevity, but we just felt that it should just kind of match what we're doing. So that's why
It'll be a painted concrete slab, there'll be the fencing, and within the fencing, there'll be bollards, so.
And those are 2 of them in the black squares, is that where they're indicated?
There's two
One
On the north and south?
Yeah. And they're out of the traffic lane in gray on that plan, that's for two-way traffic, it's 24 feet wide. It's actually wider than Averill Road. Averill Road is 18, 19 feet.
16
and
in
less.
spots.
Yeah, 16, I measured it right on the turn.
Yeah, 16 in spots.
The spots where it needs to be the biggest, it's the narrowest.
But we're 24 foot.
I'm an old surveyor.
Oh, really? You want some work? I got a lot of work. I think it's amazing to come to work for me.
It might represent a conflict of interest.
Not here, I'm talking to Syracuse. I go to Watertown.
Yeah,
Portland, we gotta do some work.
But I just showed Jay, there was a site section that we shown for the board of trustees. We didn't think it was relevant to this, but the question that he had asked about that.
But it actually shows the road, there's a little plant berm, there's a road, then we have a run of plants, and there's power lines, underground power lines going there. So we have one row of plants here, then the basin, top of the basin comes here, then the water part of the basin comes here, then you go up the hill, then we have a double row of evergreens here, and then we have our new apartment building. So it's well beyond the front yard setback, and we have a double layer of vegetation to replace the trees out there.
Yes. That's,
Okay.
that's the set, that would be like septic, and then that has a section. And we could show you, we could send it around.
So I don't know if you want to continue a presentation or if you'd like to move into other questions. I just didn't want to cut you off if the two of you.
I think that was the last.
That was it, and then the last
Okay.
slide was just about, the passive house, which if you want to know more about it, I'd have Josh talk about it, but I know you guys probably already experienced a lot of that, so it's up to you if you wanna hear more about
Does-
passive house.
Does anybody have questions related to passive houses for Josh, or are people pretty familiar with the work he's been doing?
And then we're done.
Okay, so a few questions have been asked. I thought there might be more.
Whose purview is accessibility?
Accessibility is the purview of state and county codes, correct?
From a site's perspective, I have to provide accessibility from a accessible parking space based on a certain number of parking spaces and certain slopes, which basically are below 5%, 2% within the accessible areas. And then once I get in the building, Joe's got a lot more than that.
Yeah, ADA is a federal law, but, the New York State Code references the ANSI 117.1, and that tells you what the code is for New York State. So that is where we go, the New York State Building Code, and that both have sections that we have to promote.
But we don't have any sites, we don't have any exterior stairs, everything's accessible. The playground material, we're not using mulch or sand, we're using that turf that you can roll a stroller on it, it's very accessible. It's an accessible site.
Our townhomes, the front ones do have stairs because of the way it slopes, and that's why we put the ADA units towards the back where it's flush with the grade.
It's funny, as a user, a frequent user of Naval Road on foot, I don't like what you are calling the back, I would call the front, but that's okay.
And they're,
The back of the.
they're
the
referring
back
to
of
the back in
property,
terms
right.
of away from the
But
entrance
it's,
and the
it's
parking.
actually an asset because you're putting vegetation in the stormwater facility between the building and the road and our first design, it's funny you should mention it, our first design, we had the building flipped on the other side, but then it took too much cut into the hill and it brought the road over, it made a.
It's a hill.
The site created that. I'd like to say we did, but.
Yeah, and we're also trying to be very sensitive about parking and to, where the headlights are, right? So the headlights are gonna come in and they're not gonna shine, they're gonna shine into our building and not across the way. So we had flipped, that was something that was different than we had flipped, and because we just don't want the headlights to be, going across the old road.
Now the road's further away.
Yeah, and now we pushed it even further, so it's less of an issue, but.
I'm curious about the screening on the southern 3 duplex buildings. It looks like it might be it looks unequal in terms of the.
Well, the design intent there was the townhomes, if you look across the street, there's not development, and the idea there was the townhomes would have a view, of each other, and of the drainage area. The main 24-unit apartment complex is right across from the residence, so there we put a little more vegetation there for screening, but part of the design is to being up there is to catch some views and just not feel boxed in. So we kind of try to get a balance of that. I think we compromised a little bit on it, but to be sensitive to the neighbor, I think a wall of evergreens is the right thing to do there.
You're saying that on the south side here, there aren't houses across the street?
Yeah, see the orange, this is the residence here, so this is the smaller circles, this is a double row of evergreens here, so if we put
If you go to the first sheet,
there's no house over here, there's no house.
if you go to the first sheet, you'll see that the neighbor is way down there. So there's nobody here.
So when the headlights come out here, they're gonna turn around the road, and the headlights come out here, they're gonna turn around the road.
So what is that distance from there?
Well, that's 24 feet, so that's 500. This is all wood.
So we already have vegetation.
I see, okay,
trees,
yeah.
So we didn't need to add any. Here's what we were really worried about.
Mhm.
Here's, if this was here, we would have treated it differently.
There will be some right-of-way adjacent to the road tree removal to get the underground power in, but that's just immediately adjacent to the road.
But you're saying with the natural vegetation,
Yeah.
it'll be as screened as that would be over here.
But
And that's that area that's got all that vegetation, that's not on our property.
Anybody else have any questions right now? Because we're gonna go through the same process we did before. We're not looking for any certificate of appropriateness tonight. This is really for the broader consideration, thinking about questions that have been conveyed tonight and questions that may come up after you've had some time to think about this process and the proposal. They should be conveyed to myself and Chris will forward them to the applicant and the representatives of the applicant. So if there are no more questions, and I did not want to cut off the conversation if there are, we will ask for a motion for the Village of Cooperstown's trustees to act as the lead in this process. May I have a motion to?
So moved.
Thank you. And, okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, Liz votes yes.
Aaron, yes.
Are you abstaining? I'm abstaining, yeah.
Bernie,
Yes.
Jay, yes.
Okay, and we'll quickly, I'll try to emphasize quickly, review the same special use criteria. So if there are things that, this prompts that people want to articulate now, any concerns, otherwise, again, through these criteria, if there are other questions that come up, please convey them to myself and to Chris. The proposed use, with the exception of home occupations, accessory dwelling units, or short-term rentals, must meet a demonstrated community need as identified in an adopted municipal plan or land use policy. Additional long-term housing for local employees. Bassett is certainly a demonstrated need. I don't know if anybody else has any comments or responses to that. Adjacent land uses, the proposed use must not be detrimental to its site or to adjacent parcels. The proposed use must be of such location, size, and character that it will be in harmony with its surroundings and with the appropriate and orderly development of the area in which it is proposed to be situated. Anybody have any related comments? Okay. Location and size of use, the nature, volume, and times of operation of the use involved, the size and layout of the site in relation to the use, and the location of the site with respect to existing and future streets providing access must be in harmony with the orderly development of the area in which it is proposed to be situated. Related comments? Okay. Location, nature, and size of buildings and structures. The location, height, footprint, and volume of buildings, and the location, nature, and height of walls, fences, and landscape features must be such that they will not hinder or discourage the development and use of adjacent parcels and buildings. Comments? Density of development, the density of the surrounding area, such as lot size, distances between structures, amount of open space, street width, and parking regulations must maintain the character of the zoning district in which it is proposed to be situated.
That would be not our purview, so say.
Correct. I mean, we are really filtering this through an HPARB lens, but if anybody had anything they were thinking of related to it. Okay. Vehicular access and circulation, provisions for vehicular traffic access and circulation, including intersections, road widths, alignment, grade, pavement surfaces, stormwater infrastructure, visibility, and traffic controls must promote safety considering the proposed use. Access must be adequate for safety, but not excessive. Nothing? Okay.
Well, I definitely have concerns about that, but it's outside the
Outside this
scope
board's,
of our board.
so there will be a public hearing. Pedestrian circulation. Provisions for pedestrian traffic access and circulation, walkway structures, control intersections, and vehicular traffic and overall pedestrian convenience must promote safety and accessibility. Comments? Okay. Parking, location, arrangement, appearance, and sufficiency of off-street parking spaces and loading berths must be adequate for the proposed use and in harmony with adjacent parcels. The general landscaping of the site must be compatible with plant species generally found in the area and serve to mitigate the visual impact of the parking area. I think we've addressed this. Okay. Layout, the location, arrangement, size, design, and general site compatibility of buildings, lighting, and signage must be in general harmony with the character and appearance of the surrounding neighborhood. Okay. Drainage facilities, erosion control, stormwater management plans, and drainage facilities must be in conformance with applicable regulations and must protect natural resources and adjacent parcels. That has been reviewed correctly? Everybody satisfied?
Yes.
Okay, and you've seen the drawings you needed to see at this point?
Well, I mean, I can answer that question. There's a full New York State DEC stormwater pollution prevention plan that has been designed but not yet submitted because we have some things to do, but.
I was at the previous.
Yeah, and you'll get a chance to review that. The boards, that's gonna be highly scrutinized, so we've actually almost finished that portion of it, so
That's way beyond our
I'll
purview.
reserve my questions for that other meeting.
Yeah, the public hearing, thank you. Landscape. The nature and extent of landscaping on the site must meet or exceed all legal requirements for screening and must not hinder or discourage the development and use of adjacent parcels and buildings. Existing trees and shrubbery must be retained to the extent possible. Any concerns related to that? Okay. Water and sewer, adequacy of water supply and sewage disposal facilities and other compliance with New York State and Otsego County Departments of Health requirements are required, not within our purview, but emergency access, adequate provision for fire, police, and other types of emergency vehicles must be made. Lighting, new buildings and structures must be designed, constructed, and maintained, and new and existing vegetation must be managed so as not to unreasonably impede solar radiation on other properties in order to preserve economic value of solar radiation on buildings, structures, and parcels, investments in solar energy systems, and options for future use of solar energy. Artificial outdoor lighting must be kept to a minimum intensity needed for the proposed use, fully shielded to minimize glare and prevent lighting trespass and sky glow, and confined within the boundaries of the property. And I'm assuming there will be a more complete lighting plan submitted.
There'll be a complete photometrics lighting plan that'll show where it's light, where it's not, and it'll show each fixture, the shields, and what each product does and doesn't do. So that'll be part of site plan.
Thank you.
Is there some way that there's information on what the sky glow would be as a result, as opposed to this has this type of shade? Is there some sort of way to get a measurement on whether we're going to see it from town glowing up on the hill?
We have to do like a section. I mean, the poles that we're talking, I mean, the height of the building is 24 feet, so the height of a wall pack is going to be 18, 15, and the light poles that we're talking about doing, I'm not the lighting rep on the team designing, but we're not doing 25-foot poles, we're doing 12-foot high poles. So it's very, the design intent is to be So,
So photometrics is meant to be down at this level, it's the foot candles at the ground. It doesn't give you a foot candles, 20 feet above.
the one thing, and just to put things in perspective, a lot of the trees past our site going down when you leave our site are 40 feet, 40, 50 feet tall. So our lighting is going to be below that. So, could you see a light on a fall day through the woods?
And a lot of that site is
Depending where you are.
under the shadow of the rest of the hill, so it's gonna be really hard
I
to.
don't think you're ever gonna.
I think coming up Alville Road, when you're within my guess is between 200 to 300 feet within the site, you're gonna see a little glow, but it's not gonna be a shopping center, it's gonna be a.
If that information was available in more of a formula type of arrangement for the comfort of people in the surrounding areas to have something more. It sounds like you are correct, but if there is,
There is if we get the right vendor, I will say this, we can get show a massing of this building on this site with a 3D view. It just shows the buildings would just be mass form, and it would show the light pattern. And it would show the road, what that looks like. It's a 3D model we can provide. It's not realistic in terms of people in the architecture, but you can see the light relative from a distance. It's not perfect software, but I think it would come close.
Thank you.
We could probably get that in the draft.
Yeah. Because we're gonna give you a photometric, the photometric.
No, but I agree, because the photometric, for people that don't know, we're throwing this word around, but, it's numbers on the ground of light levels. It doesn't mean anything.
You gotta make sure that it's zero before you get off your site.
I mean, it means something, but you can't see it, so you're judging something by numbers. They will give you the photometric with the numbers, and then we'll give you, and they have, some manufacturers lighting vendors can show a 3D image with what the light levels will look like.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other questions related to lighting? Does that satisfy in terms of more information coming? Noise, odor, and other irritants. Adequate nuisance, told you not to make me Sorry. Adequate nuisance prevention measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odors, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration that would hinder or discourage the development or use of adjacent parcels and buildings. People satisfied with that being addressed or concerns related to it? Fiscal considerations, the proposed use will not require such additional public facilities or devices as to create a net fiscal burden upon the village greater than those which characterize uses permitted by right. Comments or questions related to that one? Okay.
Not that one, but since we're at the end of those 16, I just want to refer us back to 370C. There were 4 things we had to look at, the
Yes.
4th of which was
Thank
this.
you.
I just want to quickly address.
Thank you, Chris.
Want me to read those out?
Please,
since I
go
got them
ahead.
from you? So 1, the process for additional reviews, if we have recommendations about that. And I think we already know that we've said we're sending it to the trustees, and then we'll go to the planning board and such. 2, determination of whether the applicant is complete for those reviews. We've been doing that, we've been asking for more materials and plans. And 3, the need for a consultant or consultants to evaluate the proposed use, which I understand we aren't asking for a consultant, but I just want to make sure we hit all those points because procedure demands we.
Thank you.
Do we need to, for the trustees, referring to the trustees?
We already did the vote to refer to a motion that the trustees gave a lead on this.
And we're done.
So what Chris just pointed out, in addition to the special use criteria we discussed, if people do consider any of those needs, please communicate to myself and Chris so he can communicate to the village and the village can address the applicant, the trustees. Okay?
I do have one other comment, and that's about the potential for Lyme disease and so forth. I don't know how valid a concern that is, but I've had it a couple times, and it's no fun, so. I know there's gotta be a lot of deer up there, and it's just something to consider, so, for what it's worth.
Well, I think the development is gonna push the deer away from where they are, but,
Push them into the cemetery.
Probably to finish eating
It's a
my
tough one
brain.
for us
Yeah,
to.
I mean, deer love that open lawn, they might come flocking, so.
There's actually more rodents than deer too, so you look at mice and voles. Since you're cutting that, you're not letting the area around the water feature be a thicket to attract rodents. There you go, you've already mitigated that vector for Lyme entry. So, congrats.
Yes.
On that accidental minimizing of the Lyme threat.
Okay, thank you, Bernie. That's important to address that too. All right, so we have a motion to designate the village as the lead agency, and we've reviewed the 4 other questions and special use criteria. Any other questions before we let these folks go on with their evenings? Because I'm sure we'll be visiting with you every month for the next few months.
Yes, we like interesting, we love your town, so there we go.
Well, we will look forward to seeing you in November, and hopefully not too many snowstorms after that, but we will do this until it's done right?
No problem.
Can I keep one of these?
Sure.
Alright.
You can keep the little one, if you want a big one, you can keep that as well.
My eyes aren't what they used to be. Got a red pen.
Here's some pen.
Red pen.
Bernie's got to do some walking.
56 years ago.
I need one of the big ones back.
Okay.
For the village.
So you can wrestle them out.
Any of these papers?
Yeah, we don't need those.
I don't like.
Do you mind taking a smaller one then?
Not a bigger one than the villain.
Yeah.
Okay. And actually,
Yeah, one is for the village and one is for his copy. So here.
Probably would have given me a backache carrying it around. I'm sure I got the answer I wanted. I'm not sure I got the answer.
We still have business. No,
Yes, we do. So, Jay, we're not done.
Yeah.
We're not done, sorry. Okay, it's okay. So, Chris, do we have to do anything related to 50 Walnut, or are we waiting for him?
No, we're waiting.
Okay, okay.
Anybody want this?
No, thank you. And Joe, yeah, there's another one over here too, I don't know. Okay, so we are going to review the minutes from the June 21st meeting, because we do have a quorum of people who were at that meeting here. And it is, we are not going to review the minutes of the September 12th meeting at this point, because that draft stalled in my mailbox, and my apologies, we'll review those next month. So has everybody had a chance to read the June 21st minutes? And does anybody have any changes or corrections? Okay, so the members present were myself, Pat, Dave, Bernie, and Aaron. So those are the folks who can vote. Does anybody want to make it a motion to accept the minutes of the June 21st meeting?
So
Oh, no, wait, sorry.
No, I don't think I was at the June.
Sorry.
It's just you.
Who was here?
Pat and me.
Okay, so the 3 of us, thank you. I was looking at the September minutes.
I cannot move.
Okay, so that would be Dave, Pat, and myself. One of you can vote and one of you can second. I'll be even-handed about it.
So moved.
Who, Pat was first, he motioned.
Second.
Dave was second. Liz votes yes.
David, yes.
Okay, Thank you all. I'm sorry if I was a little,
Is the meeting adjourned?
the
Getting late.
meeting is adjourned, and I want to thank everybody for their patience tonight and their very thoughtful discussion. With Jay new on the board and with a lot going on, if folks feel we would like to do a kind of another, between this meeting and the next kind of meeting to bring people up to speed, please let me know. If we need to have kind of a working meeting, we'll get that on the calendar and get that noticed, because it does have to be done with a public notice. So if there's kind of an interest right now, or if you can let me know within the next few days, so we do have time to get it noticed and scheduled.
Yeah, I would like to do that.
I'm interested, but I won't be here from the 20th to the end of the month.
Okay, from the 20th to the 31st. So maybe if we look at that first week in November, I'll do a doodle poll. We'll circulate and find a date when folks can make it, and then we'll get a date established, and we can do some orientation, resolve some questions. We'll have the couple of big things on the agenda for the next meeting. So that'll allow us to make sure everybody understands the process we have to go through for that. Okay?
Excellent.
Is there a course of study you would like me to begin on?
Chris will give you the village code or introduce you to the village law.
I can talk, I mean, I'm new enough that I've had to learn a lot of things, and it's fresh on my mind, so I'll happily share.
And
Great.
Jay, we'll do a little bit more bringing you up to speed once Chris has oriented you at that next meeting, at that meeting too.
I'm at your disposal. I don't work.
Great.
And,
Great concept.
pardon?
I said, great concept.
Not working, yeah.
I wouldn't
What-
want to
what's
catch
that?
some of your.
I don't know
what
When
that
I
is.
did work, it didn't seem like work, because I liked what I did.